Good afternoon. Welcome to the show. We are live. It is Monday, the 22nd of November, 2021. And I'm Mary Grace. This is Real Talk with Mary Grace. Welcome to the show. As you're coming in, please say hello. If you come back for the replay, please leave a comment. We are on YouTube. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Real Mary Grace 1. And also on CloudHub channel 111. So it's Mary Grace Media. I'm also on Telegram. Please follow the Telegram channel. That is Mary Grace Media Official. I also have a Rumble account, Mary Grace Media. So pretty much everything out there is under Mary Grace Media, except for the Twitter and Periscope, which is Real Mary Grace. Real Mary Grace 1. Look for both of those. Number 1. Okay. How is everybody doing today? Hope everybody had a great weekend. We had a great weekend. And before I forget, I wanted to say that I did not check email over the weekend. I actually just left my laptop in the studio and I didn't even get on the computer. So if you sent me an email, if you were trying to get in touch, I will check emails a little bit later. And don't get worried that I didn't see your email. If for any reason a few days go by and I still don't respond, it probably means I didn't get your email. So you can resend it. And it's info@marygracemedia.com. So let's see if they're going to actually give notifications and let people know that I'm on today. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I'm talking about, when I say they, I'm talking about the socialist media overlords over at Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. They don't like what I have to say most of the time. And so the numbers go down. Okay. Now, I wanted to jump into a few topics today. I wanted to let you kind of give you an idea of some of the things I'm going to talk about. I have a whole bunch of stuff, and so it's way more than I can fit into an hour. I already know that. I'm just going to do the best I can, but I want to talk about the new book that's out by JFK Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. Don't get excited. Robert Kennedy Jr. And And I want to talk a little bit about Joe Rogan. He's been vocal lately. He's a podcaster that some of you may or may not know about. I want to talk about some interesting information I found about COVID, and then I'm going to jump over and I may talk about the stuff that's going on in Wisconsin, also the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. And so stick with me. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be here for an hour. And I'm just looking at some of your comments as I'm talking. So if I do pause, if you're listening and you're not watching, it's because I'm looking at the comments that are happening during the live broadcast. So I'm not that scatterbrained, but if I'm reading comments, I do get a little distracted. And so I appreciate your patience. As you're coming in, please share this. Please drop the link into groups that you belong to, whether it's on Facebook or Telegram or by email or text. Let people know that we're on. I appreciate everybody showing. I appreciate everybody sharing the show that we did last week with Praying Medic. That show has had, I think, over 1,500 views on Facebook. The link is up on my Rumble channel as well. The whole show is on Rumble, and that is Mary Grace Media on Rumble. And so, hold on a second. Okay. Yeah, so that's on Rumble, and that's a good platform. People, I think you can watch on Rumble without having to be signed up anywhere. And I think that I think the same is true for YouTube as well. I don't know if you have to be signed in, but I think with Rumble you can just watch it incognito. You don't have to sign in, and unlike Facebook and those other things. Now, I think with Twitter too, you can watch stuff without being signed in. I'm still trying to figure out what happened with Twitter and Periscope and all that nonsense, because people apparently are still watching on Periscope, but I don't go live to Periscope. I think I just go live to Twitter, and it shows on Twitter. But then when you click to watch, you're on the Periscope app. I don't know. I mean, I looked over there at my Periscope, and it turns out, and my Periscope is real Mary Grace. It turns out that we had like 300 views of the show that I did, 265 views of the show that I did with Praying Medic. Who knew? Now I don't see your comments. If you are on Periscope and you're watching and you're leaving a comment, I may see it here in my restream, but I don't know. I don't know if the reason I'm not seeing comments is because nobody's commenting or because I just can't see them. So, yeah, a lot of people got off of Twitter. I still am on Twitter because that's where there's still a lot of people over there doing new media, new journalism. There's people that are breaking stories over there, and I like the interaction on Twitter. The Telegram is just not the same. It's just a whole different platform. I really hope that President Trump's new platform, Truth Social, has an element, a feel that's like Twitter. I hope it has an element like that to it. I know that CloutHub has a similar thing. I just haven't gotten as active over there. Okay, now Barley George is having one of those days where he's being extremely vocal. That's the cat. And he doesn't really listen if I tell him to be quiet. And so if you hear that, that's Barley. He's roaming around. We'll see what happens. Okay. I think that's it for the housekeeping. Getter seems similar to Twitter. Yeah, I haven't built up on Getter either. Somebody put a comment on Facebook about that. I haven't built up over there. It takes a lot of time and dedication to build a following on any platform. These people that show up on social media and all of a sudden they have 100,000 followers and things like that. It's almost a guarantee that those are fake followers, because if you're doing it right, if you're actually interacting and putting up content, it takes time. So, I mean, unless, every now and then you have something that goes viral and then you get a lot of followers from that. But even then it's just, there's a peak. So just something to think about. Now, let me get into the topic. One of the things I wanted to talk about, Joe Rogan, because he has a massive, massive audience. I've never been a follower of Joe Rogan. I wasn't really aware of, I wasn't really in his orbit until I saw the interview that he did about his experience with COVID. And I think it's interesting because then, of course, when Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, when he had COVID and he recovered and there was all that brouhaha about whether he was vaccinated, he mentioned that he had talked to his friend, Joe Rogan, and that he had gotten information from him about his protocol. It's very interesting because, both of them recovered. They're doing very well. And the media said that Joe Rogan had taken horse warmer. If you have any doubt that the media is owned and controlled by big pharma, all you have to do is just watch an hour or a half an hour of Fox News. Last night, I watched President Trump's interview with Mark Levin. And the good thing about the interview is that they had pretty long segments commercial free. But then when they went to the commercials, it was 10 minutes of nonstop pharmaceutical advertising. Thank God for the mute button. But the point is that if you don't understand how deeply controlled, how strong the control of the pharmaceutical industry is on the media, then you're really missing the point. When you have a high profile individual, an NFL athlete, whatever, who takes a medication whose founder actually was given the Nobel Prize for medicine. When you have the media going all in to tell you that this man took horse dewormer, there's a problem. And anybody with any intellectual integrity or curiosity just has to stop and say, wait a minute, I I don't think you're telling me the whole truth. I know for a fact that this medication has been given to hundreds of millions, if not billion people on the planet. It's an actual human medication that's FDA approved. And so going back to Joe Rogan, when he started to talk about this, it really it was a massive red pill. And what I mean by red pill is that you're talking about it's a reference to the movie The Matrix, where if you take the blue pill, you continue to be a part of the machine and you are basically like a worker bee slash drone. When you take the red pill, you catapult yourself into freedom and living. And so what's happening with people like Joe Rogan and um, and Aaron Rodgers is that they're breaking the matrix of the lies that people have believed and been fed for going on 2 years now about the pandemic, about COVID, because they are people that are not they're not the conservative darlings. They're not talking in an echo chamber of just conservatives. Those of us who have been following certain conservative channels, we've known from the start, from very early on, we knew about hydroxy, we knew about ivermectin, we knew about quercetin, we knew about all of this. We know who Zev Zelenko is. We know it all, a lot of us. And, we can share it as much as possible within our orbit. And I absolutely encourage everybody to do that. But one of the things that makes that when big change happens when you reach critical mass. And that is why when you have a Joe Rogan who comes into the conversation, when you have an Aaron Rodgers who is part of this mainstream, I don't know if I would say Joe Rogan is mainstream, but he's not in the conservative ink bubble, is what I'm saying. And Aaron Rodgers definitely is not. But when you have those voices coming out and just being very candid and not only telling what they did, but also asking the questions. And one of the things that Joe Rogan does is he asks the questions. He asked when he had I can't remember the guy's name, Gupta from CNN, when he had him on his podcast, he just kept asking, like, why did they lie? Why did they lied about me? They lied. And he kept saying that and he kept coming back to it and he wouldn't let it go. And that's something about somebody like him. He's very tenacious. Sanji, thank you. He wouldn't let it go. He kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's what a good journalist does. He just wouldn't stop asking the question. And that, I believe, has gotten a lot of people's attention. It got Aaron Rodgers' attention. And so let's fast forward this weekend. Over the weekend, I saw a video of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was talking about January 6th. And he was asking more questions. This time he's asking questions about this person who is known to a lot of the Anons. And Anons means the people that are on the interwebs, who are on the chans, who are doing research many times anonymously, but who have been responsible for uncovering the truth on a lot of the things that are, becoming a little more mainstream to you and me. But these are people like Praying Medic is part of the Anon community, even though he's not anonymous. He sort of started out anonymous. He wasn't really on camera until quite a while into the movement. But the point is that what Joe Rogan is doing is he's busting through the Anon curtain. He's out there putting himself on the line and asking really important questions. And going back to this agent provocateur who was very, very visibly present outside the Capitol on January 6th, I believe the man's name is Ray Epps. We'll see if my channel gets taken down for saying that. Um, this man was outside of the Capitol, and a lot of us have seen videos of this, but he was instigating. He's seen in multiple videos egging on and urging the crowd and saying, that's it. We've got to go in. We've got to take the Capitol. And this is something that I've explained to you, that this is the Saul Alinsky tactics. These are the very tactics that have been used really for decades, if not centuries, to rile up a crowd and to manipulate and steer a crowd in the direction that you want. Many times, you're sending a provocateur into a crowd of mostly innocent people, and you're stoking the fires of anger, or you're bringing in a different kind of energy, and you're creating a scenario which will then evoke a response from authorities, and it gives the authorities the justification that they need to exercise authority over the people. And it's a tactic that has been used forever. It's a tactic. It's what Hitler did during to instigate, quote, riots during World War II. He did it in the Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia. He did it, I think, in Vienna. It was when anytime you have masses of people gathering, and you can create an incident, then you can justify using force against the people. That's really what this was all about. And we still don't know exactly who was behind it, but it's believed that this man was an FBI plant. Shocker, I know. I mean, the FBI is the American KGB. Let's just be real. But Joe Rogan was talking about this, and he has a good style of presenting, because he gives you the information. He doesn't really tell you what to think. He just says, what about this? I mean, this is interesting. This guy, he shows up in these videos, and he's in video after video, and we hear him egging on the crowd. We hear him telling them, saying things like, you have to go in. You have to go in. It's time. We got to storm the Capitol. And he's bringing this up. And it reminds me a little bit of the way that President Trump does things. He uses a little bit of a rhetorical style where it's like he just wants to know. He's exercising his curiosity, and he's not necessarily coming to a conclusion. It's a very powerful communication form. And so what's happening is that the people that listen to Joe Rogan and the people that are in his orbit are starting to get red pilled. And it's like there's nothing you can do to stop it, because he has such a massive audience. He has a higher reach than CNN, and you can't stop that kind of momentum. It's critical mass. There's a book called Tipping Point, and it talks about how when you're trying to have an impact, you don't need all of the people to buy in. You need between 10 and 15%. And we know that there's way more than that of the population who love Trump, support him, and understand that he is the president. But we're talking about needing to awaken 10 to 15% of the normies, all right? The people that have not been red pilled. That's who we're trying to wake up. And some of you guys get irritated when you see information posted again, or when you hear President Trump say certain things over and over again. Just understand that the message is not for you. It's not for the people that are already awake. It's for the people that are still asleep, who have been taking blue pill after blue pill after blue pill. And so the question about Ray Epps, and this is something that Joe Rogan brought up, is that I don't think that he's been taken into custody. Nothing has happened to him. And that's another sign that we are dealing with a two-tiered justice system. It's egregious. We have prisoners who have been held in custody for 10 months now, and some of them in most of the time in solitary confinement. I mean, they've been in horrendous conditions, really abused. They're political prisoners. It's like a gulag up there. And so, uh, um, so I think that it's important to understand this, not to despair, because the fact that Joe Rogan is bringing attention to it is actually very encouraging. But I wanted to bring this up because that is something that you can actually share with people who are not red pilled, who don't have all the information, who are not Trump fans, you wouldn't consider Republicans or conservatives, or even people that are so-called Republicans who are never Trumpers and things like that. The stuff that Joe Rogan has been doing is good because, again, he's not a MAGA guy. He's not telling people that they have to follow Trump. He's not talking about that. He's asking real questions about situations that that we don't have answers to yet. Hold on just a second. And the other on that note, uh, um, the other thing that, right, I'm going to address Vicky's comment in YouTube in just a minute, but let me get to the book by Robert Kennedy Jr., because this is on the same vein of what I'm saying about Joe Rogan. Here's the thing. Robert Kennedy Jr.'s book, The Real Anthony Fauci, The Real Baby Mengele. This is the book. It's also on Kindle. I think it's like $2.99 on Kindle. This book, I have never seen so many words in a book outside of a Tolstoy novel. Look at this. There's hardly any margins. Look at that. It's crazy. I mean, I might as well be reading Anna Karenina. But this is an important book because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a lifelong Democrat. And it's very clear in the first chapter of the book that he's not a fan of President Trump. And, he describes him as erratic and, just, I don't think he trusts him. So again, this is a book that you could send to people that, are not fans of Trump. Now he's calling out the pharmaceutical industry. He's naming, big pharma, and he's implicating baby Mengele in the process. I think that it's going to be an important book. I'm actually surprised that it's available on Amazon, to be honest. I don't know how that happened. Maybe because he's a Democrat. I don't know. But one thing I do know is that they've got their knives out for him. When I saw him when in Anaheim, he had a pretty tight security team around him. And so these people are just the amount of control that the medical industrial complex holds over our Congress, over Washington D.C., over the everything, the media. I mean, and I believe that it's not. I believe that that big pharma, that the medical industrial complex is actually controlled by larger forces, and I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but the amount of control that they have is just unreal. Now I'm looking at a comment in the chat. This person said, I just got the book in the mail. I'm disappointed that he isn't pro-Trump, though. Here's something I want you guys to understand. Trump is awesome. I love President Trump. He's not finished. The work that he has done and the work that he is doing and will do is critically important, vitally important. What I understand is that what I want people to really understand, and I addressed this last week when I was talking about the rally out in San Francisco, and addressing somebody's comment about how they were disappointed, that people from BLM and other walks of life were there. Um, I would be actually look at it the opposite. I would encourage you to look at it from the opposite perspective, because this is the information that's coming out is is critically important for people to understand. And one of the things that people have to understand is that there is a certain element of our society who actually will not hear or listen to anything if they feel that it's in any way connected to President Trump. Their bias is just that strong. And so they don't have ears to hear, they don't have eyes to see something that may or may not be from somebody that is aligned with President Trump. And the fact that we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. coming out and voicing and writing this multi-chapter 400 and some page book exposing this character is actually amazing. And it's way better than if President Trump did it. It's way better than if you had a pro-Trump surrogate writing the book. Because those people would dismiss it out of hand. It's like if you send them to Fox News, even though we know that Fox News is compromised, they don't know that. They equate Fox News with staunch conservatism and white nationalism in their minds. And so having Robert F. Kennedy be the one to drop this is critically important, and it's going to reach a lot more people. And this is and the other thing is, remember I told you why President Trump coordinated, or why President Trump trotted Fauci out in the first place. People ask me, why did he give him a voice? Why did he put him front and center? Well, here's your answer. The answer is that President Trump knows that if you give a person enough rope, they will hang themselves. So here is the result of President Trump's decision to put Anthony Fauci on the world stage and to allow him to talk himself into the Haman's gallows. Okay? This book would not exist if President Trump had not brought Anthony Fauci to the podium and let him talk and talk and talk and talk and get himself on all the news shows and parade around like a peacock, who is his own biggest fan. Do you understand that? Do you understand the strategy behind that? So it could very well be that President Trump is in conversation with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I wouldn't put it past him. It wouldn't surprise me if if President Trump asked him to write the book. Because think about it, imagine if President Trump came out in the beginning of 2020, or even before that, and said, "Hey guys, listen, I need you to know that Anthony Fauci, aka Baby Mangala, is a fraud. He has been hurting people. He's been hurting animals. He's been taking money. He's been money laundering. He's in bed with Big Pharma. The decisions that he makes are not medically sound. He hasn't had a stethoscope on his ears for the past 40 years. He doesn't see real patients. He's in short, he's a monster." Imagine if President Trump came out and said those words at any time in the last 5 years. Imagine what kind of hero Anthony Fauci would be to the whole world, really. And right now, he's a hero because the media has made him a hero. And the only reason that his name matters is that President Trump gave him the podium. That's the only reason that anybody outside of the AIDS debacle from the 80s even knows his name. I want you to understand that. Sometimes I feel like people aren't getting this, and I think that I'm doing a good job of explaining it, but people are still missing it. when you want to shine a spotlight on somebody and you want to bring them down, you can't, sometimes you have to go around the barn to do it. You can't be the one. President Trump could not be the one to take down Anthony Fauci, just like President Trump can't appear to be the one bringing down the people that are being targeted by the Durham investigation. If there's any hint that President Trump was weaponizing his law enforcement, the DOJ, the FBI, or anything like that, to come after these people, can you imagine the backlash? I mean, we know that the Brandon regime is weaponizing the law enforcement, the FBI, the DOJ, to go after people. That's what they did to Kyle Rittenhouse and other people and all of the January 6th prisoners. But they get a pass because the media is owned. The media is the propaganda arm of that regime. And so they can do whatever they want. But because it's the propaganda arm of the regime, the reason that President Trump couldn't do that is that they would absolutely destroy him. And Fauci would probably own half the networks. So just understand that. Understand the strategy that that President Trump and his team have used a lot. I mean, Fauci is not going to come out of this smelling like roses. He's not. I mean, the fact that he was on the front lines and that he got through COVID without getting COVID, that says a lot, because he's the one who authored the paper on the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine as a preventive of the SARS-CoV virus in 2005 for the National Institutes of Health. He knew, and he was using it. That is why Dr. Stella Immanuel called him out and challenged him to take a blood test, because she knew. Just like half of Congress was getting treated by FLCCC Alliance, by Dr. Corey and other physicians. That's why they didn't get COVID. The man is a monster. Okay. So I hope that helps. I hope that explains to you why it had to be this way, why the exposure had to come in this way. The same thing with Durham. It's kind of funny because President Trump, keeps asking, he was asking, where's Durham? Where's Durham? But if you listened to the interview that he did last night with Mark Levin, he didn't say, where's Durham? He said, there's a lot of stuff coming out from Durham. It's getting pretty interesting. Big difference. He's known all along what's going on. But for him to be out of office in the eyes of the world, and for him to be a private citizen and to be observing and making a comment on what's going on is extremely different from being president and having Durham bring all these people in, indict all these people. Can you see that? I mean, he's just sitting there going, oh, hey, look, Durham got another one. It's very different. And the interesting thing is, the regime is wrapped up in this, the Brandon regime. And so, they can't object because it's their DOJ. Durham is their guy now. He's stayed. And if you have any doubt that the White Hats are actually having a pretty good amount of control, how come the Durham investigation wasn't stopped by the Brandon regime? Nothing can stop what is coming. So just think about that. I want to look at your comments for just a second here. Interesting comments. Trump is a very stable genius. Okay, now I'm going to say this one more time. One last time. I feel like I've said this ad nauseum about President Trump promoting the jab. All right, let me just talk about this, okay? Can somebody just give me cliff notes about this? Because I feel like I've said it over and over and over and over again. Every time he talks about Operation Warp Speed, first of all, I think it's synonymous for other things, for saving our country. But when he talks about the jab, when he talks about getting 3 vaccines done, let's go back. Maybe you need to rewatch the coronavirus hearings in the White House. It was Anthony Fauci who said, well, when we get a vaccine, the country can go back to normal. Because we went from 15 days to slow the spread to give us another 30 to if you leave your house, you're going to get arrested. And whatever was going on with Big Pharma, with Fauci, it was basically our country was at war at that time. But when it first started, I believe that that Fauci and whoever is controlling him was extorting President Trump and his team. What do I mean by that? The reason that he said that, the reason that Trump did what he did is because Anthony Fauci threw down and said, well, the only way that this is going to happen, that the country is going to reopen, is if we have a vaccine. I can't see any other way. Now, I haven't read all of Robert Kennedy's book, but I can tell you, and President Trump has explained ad nauseum, that the normal time period for getting a vaccine produced and to market, not just with the research, but with supply chain distribution, the normal time frame is anywhere from 5 to, and last night he said 12 years. Think about that. If President Trump had done what any other spineless Republican did and said, oh, gee, I just turn everything over to you. We'll just wait until you find a vaccine. Have at it. Billions of dollars a year. 10 years later, we would still be looking for the cure, and our country would be absolutely destroyed. We would be on perpetual lockdown until the end of time. And there is more that I believe was happening. There's more that was taking place. President Trump said that his actions in Operation Warp Speed saved tens of millions of lives. And he refers back to the Spanish flu. He says 1917. It was actually 1918. Some of the Anons are trying to figure out why he does that, because he constantly says that. So what he's saying that this vaccine has saved hundreds of millions of lives all over the world. And this is what I think is interesting, because when he talks about the vaccine, yes, he's talking about the shot, but he also mentioned therapeutics last night, Regeneron. But when he talks about it and he says that his vaccine has saved hundreds of millions of lives, I want you to think about something. Other countries don't all have our vaccine. So there's other vaccines. But I think that when he's talking about the vaccine, that it's code for something else, just like Operation Warp Speed is code for something else. The other thing is, and I'm saying this fast because I've said it so many times, but hopefully you can keep up with me. The other thing about this is that I really believe that there was a mass casualty event that would have resulted in more acute and immediate casualties all around the country, if not the world. And that is why President Trump put up these field hospitals all over the country. It wasn't just in New York City. It wasn't just in New Orleans. He put them everywhere. They were inland. They were at ports of entry, everywhere. I believe that there was a much bigger threat. And so, I just want to encourage people to give him a break. Back off. Every time it's like people are so focused on him talking about the jab. It's like you're waiting for him to say something about it and you miss everything else he says. He's a man and he's not going to always say everything the way that you want him to say it. But I really want to caution you against drinking the Kool-Aid of the doomsday black pillars who are telling you that he's part of the problem because he keeps talking about the vaccine. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't be so hyper-focused on what he says about that you miss all of the other important stuff that he's saying and doing. Start to think critically and start listening and getting revelation about what it is that he says, because nothing that he says is without intention. And if you learn and start to understand and look for those little hints that he drops, I think that you'll be a lot happier. But if you're so focused on what he says about the shot that you can't hear anything else he says, then I would suggest that you stop listening to him, because you're missing a lot. You're missing a whole lot if you miss out and if you fixate on that. And here's the other thing. I talked about this before. If you're a Christian and you find it difficult to see the bigger picture and to have hope and to see beyond the fact that President Trump says this and you don't want him to say that, then I would suggest that you're actually very focused on the problem and you're not focusing on the solution or the one who is bringing the solution. There's always more sides to things than we can see with the human eye. And, President Trump is being used by God. He's an instrument of God who said yes to come in and dismantle a thousands of year old cabal. The words that he says about the vaccine are just it's like a microscopic pinprick on the landscape of the work that he's been called to do. I know that's hard for some people to get, but this is a much bigger project than whether or not the vaccine is good or bad. And I'm not commenting on what I think about the vaccine. I'm just asking you to have perspective, because people have completely lost perspective about the bigger picture here. Does that help? I hope that helps. I hope it helps. There's one question that somebody has on Facebook, and I'm going to read this question and answer it. Let's see. Yeah, so Pat just reminded me that I think that Trump did have to choose between the lesser of two evils. I think that there was a big problem that the country was being threatened with something very big that we may or may not ever know about back in early January, February, March of 2020. Somebody on Facebook, Joanne, says, "I like watching you, but is this all speculation or fact on your part? How do you know that what you were saying is fact? No disrespect." Okay, so Joanne, if you're new to my channel, I'll try to explain it. There's a couple of things that if you listen to what I'm saying, a lot of what I'm saying is opinion. I give my opinion, and I almost always say this is what I think. And so if you get used to the way that I talk, I will often precede something with this is what I think. Now, if I'm reading something, if I'm using a source, I will almost always try to tell you, this is what I'm seeing. I'm reading from this. And I try to attribute that to the original source, to somebody that posted or whatever. The other way that I know things, there are things that I know that I believe to be true, but I almost will never say this is a fact unless I actually can trace it to an original source. And I'll give you an example. During the election, the other thing is I'm prophetic. I hear God. God speaks to me. I get unctions. I get hunches about stuff. And I will talk about things that seem a little crazy at the time sometimes. And people, maybe say, okay, that's just, how would she know that? It's because I pray and ask to receive wisdom and revelation. It's right there in the book of Ephesians. You can ask for that too. And God gives me that in these hunches and feelings that I have. For example, the night of the election in 2020, when we saw all of the votes get flipped, when all of a sudden, people went to bed, they woke up the next morning and it was, Brandon, the regime had stolen the election. I said, around that time, I said, I believe that what has happened is that President Trump was aware of all of this and that he knew it was going to happen. In fact, he told us it was going to happen. And so that you can go back and look at the videos of him saying that during his rallies and speeches. He told everybody it was going to happen. But the part that I wasn't sure of, and I started to get this unction that it was true, was that President Trump and probably members of Space Force, maybe NSA, were tracking in real time the theft. They were tracking and recording in real time what was happening in these major cities where they were changing the votes and changing the numbers. And that was just something that I had a hunch about. You would say that Holy Spirit, God, gave me that information just in my spirit. And that was something that I was almost sure of. And when I present that information, when I have a revelation from God, I will say, this is what God is showing me. I am telling you, this is the truth. And sometimes it takes a while for that to be revealed. And in the past year, it has been revealed. This is what Mike Lindell's Cyber Symposium was about the actual tracking and data retention and capture of what was happening, what the people that stole the election were doing. God showed me that before it was actually announced or verified. I hope that helps. That's sort of how I know things. And, there's a lot of things that God shows me and I talk about them, and then it comes out that it actually was a thing, Okay. So now, let's see. Now, I can't answer the question about why President Trump is not exposing what's happening with the children, with the babies, things like that. But I can tell you that there's a book here that was just published, and somebody else besides President Trump that would have the ear of more people is exposing this right here. Okay? That's why my guess is that he's not doing it, for the same reason that he's not coming out directly against baby Mengele, right? He said in the interview last night, yeah, we got along great, but I did pretty much the opposite of everything he recommended. That's a key phrase, all right? And so that tells you right there, if you're listening, and you're reading between the lines, this is where I want you to start thinking critically and allowing the Spirit of God to guide you in your thinking. Because if you listen to what he said, yes, he touted Operation Warp Speed. Yes, he said that he got the vaccine done in record time. You can thank him for that, because our country would still be locked down if he didn't do that. But he also said, I like Dr. Fauci. We got along, but I did the opposite of what he said. That right there is a clue that President Trump is not in agreement with the recommendations that this monster is making, including vaccinating your children and your babies and experimenting on them. Can he come out politically right now and say that flat out? Absolutely not. Are you kidding? That would be political suicide. The media is still captured and run by the medical industrial complex and the CCP. There's no way he could say that. Is there someone else who can say it, though? Yes, Robert Kennedy Jr. Do you understand how this works? It's very, there's a lot of strategy involved, okay? Now, as usual, I'm not going to get through my whole list here. Oh, I saw Jim come in on YouTube. Hey, you're watching live. Let's see. What else? Yeah, this story, guys, is far from over. All right? It's far from over. Listen, as you're watching right now, I'll just take a break. Some of you maybe just got here. I can see more people coming in. Be sure and share this. Take the link and share it into groups that you belong to. If you're on Facebook, tag people that you know. We want everybody to get the message, get the word out that I'm live, The content that I have is so important. People tell me all the time that they're really thinking differently, that I'm prodding them to think in different ways, and that the information that I bring is good. So please share it. I'm Mary Grace. This is Mary Grace Media. My show is Real Talk with Mary Grace. So please just share this out. And if you come back to watch the replay, please do leave a comment. It helps other people see the show. It helps it moves the algorithm. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. Don't forget, join my Telegram channel, which is Mary Grace Media Official. You can go over there and follow it. Also, go and follow my Rumble channel, and that is Mary Grace Media, because I'm going to be uploading content to Rumble now, and I want people to go ahead and start watching on there. Oh, and when you watch on Rumble, hit the little plus sign. That's how you like the video. You can also leave comments over there. I don't do live on Rumble right now because you have to pay them to do it, but I do. I am going to start posting on there. The video that I did with Praying Medic last week is on Rumble. You can watch it over there. It's not on YouTube because they would have taken down my channel because he's banned from YouTube. You're not going to want to miss that. It was a really, really good show. I've gotten great feedback. And so those of you who did watch it, I appreciate your feedback. It's fantastic. And I finally figured out how to fast forward on Rumble. I didn't do that before. But now that I've gotten a little bit of the gist of what it is and how it works, I feel better. Let's see. Now, there's a couple of other topics that I wanted to talk about. I'm going to take a quiz here. There's a couple things. One is I could talk about what happened in Wisconsin. I could talk about some information that I got about COVID. You guys want me to talk about Wisconsin, about the terrorist attack last night? I think I want to talk about that. So this is very interesting. There was, and this, I want to congratulate the people, the researchers, the Anons who have gotten so good at researching and compiling evidence, really almost immediately when an incident occurs. And this is something that we learned from Q. And one of the things that he taught, that group taught us, is how to think critically, how to look at a news story. First of all, to understand that the mainstream media is the enemy of the people, and that they just lie. They don't even pretend anymore. I mean, that's how we got the phrase, "Let's go, Brandon," because the announcer was just flat out lying on live TV in real time. And that is such a glaring example. And that's why they don't like that phrase. That's why they hate it, because it indicts them. But what the Anons, the independent researchers and alternative media, have done is that they have really perfected the art of crowdsourcing and researching in real time. And I'll give you an example. So last night, when this man drove his SUV into this parade, the Christmas parade in Wisconsin, it's called Waukesha, Wisconsin. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. If you're from there, forgive me if I mispronounced it. But in Waukesha, Wisconsin, there was a Christmas parade. A red SUV plowed into the parade and just kept hitting people. And so what happened is, the people that were watching this, the Anons, who are really good at internet research, they started researching immediately. I mean, the car, the everything. And so they were on the ball like immediately. And one of the reasons that that's so important, Keisha, one of the reasons that's so important is that we now know that the FBI, that the socialist media overlords, that they have a real bad habit of scrubbing social media of people who commit crimes when the criminal does not fit their narrative. And this individual did not fit their narrative because he had brown skin. He had brown skin. He was a career criminal, and it looks like they've actually uncovered from his social media that he was an admitted child sex trafficker. So that's not somebody that they can necessarily make into a hero or a folk icon. I mean, unless they want to create another George Floyd. But 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 the point is that they can't. The media will spin a narrative that the normies believe. But because the Anons have gotten so good at what we do, the media narrative cracks almost immediately. And the other thing that happened that really didn't work in their favor is that a lot of people actually tuned into the Rittenhouse trial, and they had made a lot of assumptions prior to listening and watching the trial, and their assumptions got blown out of the water because they realized, wait a minute, I thought he shot black men. I thought he was this. I thought he was that. And I'm listening to the trial and I'm hearing the evidence, and I realized that I was completely led astray. That's another red pill, guys. And so we have all of this groundwork being laid that is bringing people out of their stupor. And now we have a story that happens 2 days after the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict in the same state. I don't know how far apart these towns are, but this man was released on $1,000 bond the Friday, the day that Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted. Do you think that's a coincidence? This career criminal, he was a self-admitted Black Lives Matter, anti-white, a career criminal who actually had a video on his social media describing how to use your vehicle to kill people. So if you're the media, how long can you fight the narrative of the truth? It's a bad situation because I don't know that it was a false flag. We may find out that it was. He may have been induced into that behavior. The media is trying to tell you that he was fleeing another fight, that he was fleeing an altercation in his car. The people who watch the video will tell you that this wasn't a case of somebody who was driving too fast and took a wrong turn and found themselves all of a sudden in a crowd of people. The reason that people have concluded that that is not the case is that that he kept driving, and so that's an important factor. Normally, if somebody hits a pedestrian by mistake, they're going to stop the car. That didn't happen, and so my point about this, going back to what I was saying about the narrative, is that thanks to President Trump for constantly pointing out the lies, for waking people up to the criminality of the propaganda media, the propaganda arm of the Democrat Marxist Communist Party, that that people are so much more awake now. And so every time an incident takes place, every time an incident takes place, we're not even waiting to hear what the corporate media is going to say, because we're already searching and scouring every corner of the internet to get the truth. And people already had his rap sheet up on Twitter, within a couple of hours of it happening. 5 years ago, when President Trump walked down the escalator, almost 6 years ago, that when that happened, people didn't know. I mean, think about it. Like, we were wet behind the ears. We were just little babes, and we were like, "Yoo-hoo, rah, 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 rah." A lot of people didn't know if they even liked Trump, and then he started dropping all these red pills and truth bombs and telling people what the media was actually doing, and then Q came on the scene and used the Socratic method and got people to start researching, like, who owns the media? What corporations all together own the media? Those kinds of things. It's like, now forget about it. You can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore. The people are awake. And what Q said is, the people awake are their greatest fear. And this is what's happening. This is what I mean by critical mass. That's a really important thing to understand, because the trial last week really woke a lot of people up, because they had been completely convinced. Jim on YouTube says, per the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, he was previously charged with purposely running over a woman with a vehicle. Oh, really? Can you send me that? That's amazing. November. He was just charged on November 5th, Jim? Wow. Yeah. So, vehicular homicide. I think that's the word for it. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the other problem that we have in this state is that these prosecutors and DAs have been bought and paid for by George Soros, and they've done all of this so-called bail reform. They did it in New York too, right? The criminals are just turned right back out on the street, because they're lowering the bail. He only had to have he only had to have $1,000 to get out. In New York, they were having, what was it, like, bail free arrest, right? That's a problem, because you're just they're like, why arrest them if they're not even going to have to put up bail? That's crazy. But that's what they're doing, and it's intentional. These people want criminals out on the street. They want lawlessness. Look what happened in California over the weekend, in Walnut Hills. There was a shopping mall that, I think it was over 100 thugs pulled up and just started grabbing and shoplifting. I don't even know if shoplifting is the word. It was just outright theft. They were just stealing stuff from all the luxury stores and just driving off. And the problem is that the laws, these city councils and mayors have changed the laws so much. They've changed the laws so much that there's no justice. There's no penalty. You don't have to pay the price. There's no accountability, and so people are just going to do it. They literally get away with murder. That's the two-tier justice system. Okay. And you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, and the bail was $2 million, and they had to raise money for it. And yes, Mike Lindell contributed a portion of that. I think he contributed $50,000. Mike Lindell has helped other people too, in connection with the January 6th. I'm not at liberty to give you that information, but he's helped some people who have needed help financially with lawyers and things like that. He's a really good man. But I think that people just, I would take hope. This is what I would do. I would take hope because the information is getting out there. Those of us who have been part of this fight for quite a while have really gotten awake, and we've learned the skills of research and saving content and getting on the social media profiles and grabbing the information, grabbing the screenshots, and that's something else that Q told everybody, is to archive everything offline, and that's what people are doing. And because we now have a digital army, an army of digital soldiers. That's what Praying Medic was talking about last week. they're taking very seriously their role, our role. We're taking very seriously our role in fighting this war because it is a war. It is an information war, and the spillover is resulting in these kinds of casualties. I assure you that it's not going to go on like this forever. But the work that the digital soldiers are doing is critical to winning this war. And so if that's a set of skills that you have, don't take it lightly. Whatever it is that you are able to do, whether it's locally learning how to be to be an election observer, being a precinct committee member, all of those things make a big difference. That is where we're taking back our country. And I just want to commend the people who've stepped up to do that. It's 2:10 and I've been on for over an hour. It just seems like I could just talk and talk and talk and talk. But I'm going to stop. And those of you who are fans of Elijah Streams, I do encourage you to take part and to go listen to that show. It's really encouraged me a lot. And if you're new to the prophetic, if you're new to, God speaking through people and to people, just understand that is a proven modern day that is a way that He has spoken to people that way from the beginning of time. There are people who think that doesn't happen anymore, but it does. And so I encourage you to take part and to go listen to Elijah Streams because it's very encouraging. And we know that God wins. We know that God wins, and we know that people ask me if this is the end times. I don't think so. And I'm not a theologian, but I don't see that happening. And if you're in a place where you feel like, okay, Jesus, come back, I just want to escape, I really want to challenge you. Why do you want to escape? Doesn't God have a role for you here on this planet right now, in this time, in this part of history? Why were you born? Were you born just to punch your ticket and escape? I don't think so. I don't think that's really the MO that Jesus has for the people here. We have work to do. And so I just want to encourage you to really rethink that. All right. Now, those of you who are trying to think about what to do for Christmas, if you're Christmas shopping, anybody that wants to be on my email list, please go to my website, marygracemedia.com. And there's a pop-up where you can opt into my email list, or you can send me an email. But what I want to encourage you to do is get on my email list because I am going to be sending out some information. A lot of you have asked about superfoods. A lot of you have signed up for information before. That is a great gift that you can give to yourself or to friends because the gift of health is something that is timeless. You can also give CBD. And I think I'm going to launch officially my new CBD brand next week, but I am so happy with the CBD that I have. And I have a link so that you can buy from my CBD store. There's all kinds of stuff there. There are pet treats, there's CBD for pets, there's oil that you can take, there's soft gels, there's skin care, there's hair care. It's amazing. And I'm loving this CBD. One of the things that I am challenged with a lot with my health, because I have an autoimmune condition, is that I get muscle pain. I get a lot of soreness, even though the superfoods are helping me a lot with inflammation. The missing piece has been that I deal with a lot of pain, joint pain, muscle pain. This CBD that I'm taking, is a game changer. I can't even tell you. Like, I'll never take an Advil again. I didn't really take it much to begin with, but only like in a dire situation. This stuff is amazing. So if you or somebody that is dealing with pain, like arthritis, fibromyalgia, autoimmune conditions, things like that, or just stress and anxiety, I totally recommend. So write to me, info@marygracemedia.com. I'll send you the information. You can also go to my website, marygracemedia.com, join my mailing list, because I'm going to be sending more information about that. But if you want the information now, just write to me, info@marygracemedia.com. If you get the superfoods voucher, going back to that, you can save over $100 off a 30-day supply. That's like a fantastic gift to give yourself and your loved ones. And our prices haven't gone up, unlike the supply chain and all the food in the grocery store. I will be back on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and you're watching Real Talk with Mary Grace Media, and I'm Mary Grace. Make sure you subscribe, like, turn on your notifications, and I will see you later. Thank you so much to my moderators and to all of you for your great contributions. Have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.